Welcome to chess, ladies and gentlemen. So I got my Steve Jobs look going with the turtleneck and stuff. Are you having problems with writing documents correctly? I have the solution for you. Presenting the iMechanical Pencil 2020. It's going to change your life. It's only $1,387. No, I'm just playing. Let me get fixed up here. Bam. Bam. Bam, bam. Okay. Just kidding, guys. But yes, welcome to chess, ladies and gentlemen. I have the round, what's the round? It's the game. It's the fifth game that that Wesley So and Teimour Radjabov have played. As you guys know, they have two different matches they play in the knockout, and then if they need to, they go to two blitz games and an Armageddon game. So this is one of their regular match games. So Teimour Radjabov won the first match, and then Wesley So won the second match, and he actually has advanced into the quarterfinals. They got Jan Nepomniachtchi, they have Magnus Carlsen, they got Hikaru Nakamura, and then they got Wesley So. So Wesley So is going to be playing. Wesley So is going to be playing Hikaru Nakamura. Now, this is the so I guess it would be the second game that they played in the series, in the second match of the what's it called? The knockout portion. So if you guys are ready, let's take a look and see what we have. This is a good one. It's a good one. All right, so let's get rolling here. All right, so we have E4. All right, so we got E5, knight to F3, knight to C6. All right, so bishop C4. Got the Italian game, so we got the Giuoco piano here. All right, so we have castles. We got knight to F6. We got D3. All right, so we have castles for black. We got C3. So we have the Giuoco pianissimo, the very quiet game, even though most of them aren't quiet, as you guys know. All right, so we got D6, just trying to make sure that we have, we're getting everything out. All right, so we have rook to E1, H6. We don't want any bishop G5 nonsense going on, or even knight G5. So we got knight B to D2. All right, so we have A6. All right, so knight to F1. As you guys see, I mean, it's pretty similar to what they played before. And so we have rook to E8. And so actually, if I back up here a touch, instead of so let's see, once we had A6, instead of knight to F1, a pretty strong continuation would have been actually A4. Of course, it's like, B5 is usually what you want to play once you play an A6. It's either you're trying to prevent, a pin or maybe a knight jumping to B5, or you're trying to play, B5 and just knock the bishop away or something. But A4 was actually a pretty strong move. And then we probably see A5, just making sure that we try to stop, white being able to play A5. We see H3, and we'd have bishop to E6, and we'd have B3. And we're getting the bishop a square to go to, try to have some influence on this diagonal. So it definitely was a kind of like an alternate variation. It's not like what was played in the game was wrong, but this was definitely an alternate option. So what I try to give you guys is kind of like sidelines and stuff that can be played too. Because sometimes I think when you guys might be watching, the analysis that I'm doing and stuff, or you might be watching the game, you might have kind of like some thoughts as like, can this move or that move be played? So I like to try to give y'all a little bit of, side variations. So that way, maybe some of these moves might link up to, what you guys were thinking yourself and stuff. And, so if you're not thinking of the moves that they're actually playing, it's not that you're wrong. It's just, there's always multiple ways that you can play positions and stuff like that. So just going back to what we had before. Like I said, we had rook to E8. All right, so we had knight to G3. All right, so bishop back to A7. All right, so we got bishop to B3. Because, bishop to E6 is most likely going to be coming. So, we want to make sure that we have the ability to tuck this, tuck this bishop back into C2. All right, so like I said, bishop to E6 comes. We have bishop just back to C2. All right, so we have D5. Like I was saying before, guys, whenever you have a legitimate pawn center, your opponent's going to always be trying to, chip away at it. All right, so we have pawn takes D5, queen takes D5, we got H3. So we're just making sure that knight can't come here, and we have some problems on this F2 square. Nice tenderoni. All right, so we got Rook A to D8. All right, we got Queen E2. And so we have Queen to C5. And we have B4. Now, an alternate variation in this particular situation, when we had Queen to E2, could have been B5. And, because as you guys saw, that bishop was attacked as soon as it landed on this square. And it's possible it was kind of like a redirecting move, to kind of put it on this diagonal somewhere. But, there's a lot of times when you'll play games, guys, where, you might throw a piece out there and it starts to get attacked by pawns, and you definitely don't want to lose a bunch of tempo just getting your pieces attacked all day. So we would probably see something like A3, just making sure that we can't have any type of minority attack here, because you might want to try to disable these pawns a little bit here. All right, so we'd probably see queen back to D6 and bishop to D2. And so going back to the main variation we had B4, so the bishop decides to go back to F8 here. All right, so we got bishop to B2. I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you, bishop B2 is a little bit, I think it's a little bit strange, just simply because, I mean, this bishop is just kind of biting on its own pawn, and then it's biting on this pawn. And so, I mean, it doesn't really have a lot of scope. So you want to try to, avoid, popping your bishops on non-open diagonals. As you guys can see, this pawn can push up here, so this bishop can have more scope. Personally, I feel like maybe bishop D2 or bishop E3 would have probably been a little bit better for the bishop here. So we got queen back to D7, and so we have queen to F1. And, just making sure, in case there's any type of, sacrifice and stuff, we got we got it protected and everything. But my question is bishop takes H3 a legitimate sack? And that's the thing. I mean, you have a lot of times you'll play games where, somebody will try to line up their queen and their bishop like this on this pawn, and they'll sack. A lot of times when I'm playing bullet, people will try to do that, and I'm like, I don't believe you. Just like Naka says, I mean, I don't believe you. So let's take a look at that variation. So let's say, for example, queen came to D1. And it just didn't even care about the H3 pawn. So let's just go into the variation here. So we have bishop takes H3, pawn takes H3, queen takes H3. We have queen back to E2, knight to D5, queen to E4, knight to F4, and knight to H2. And so, of course, the super huge threat was queen to G2 checkmate. So we have everything covered. And the important thing about moving this rook over is that this knight can always come back to this square and add extra protection to this other knight. A lot of times when I'm playing, I'll play like the Ruy Lopez exchange, and it'd be the Alapin gambit, where the bishop comes here and it does a little H5 hook thing. You always kind of have to worry about your knight getting kicked away, and then the queen being able to penetrate on this file here. Once the H file opens and you have the rook back here. Usually when you move rook over anywhere, you free your knight, the ability to come back into this square and just add extra protection onto that stuff. So you got to try to, do some calculation to see if a sack is legitimate. If not, call their bluff and just go ahead and smash them real quick. You have my permission. So going back to what we had already, like I said, we had queen to F1. So bishop back to D5. So we have rook to E3. And so we have B5, just trying to, clamp down and make sure that we don't have any little pawn pushes and stuff here. All right, so we got A3, just making sure that we have like a real solid structure here. And we don't have any little, trickeroos. All right, so we have rook to E3. And we have rook A to E1, just trying to make this this pawn push here as impossible as possible, if that's even a phrase. But, something that was actually, pretty strong on the side tip would have been actually knight to H4. It would be forcing the rook back in, because what the problem that you have right here is the fact that this bishop is attacking this knight. And so once you move the knight away from the attack, this bishop doesn't really have any squares to go to. So it's kind of trapped a little bit. So, exploiting that, we'd see rook back to E8, rook E to E8. We'd see C4, bishop back to E6, knight back to F3. So we'd see queen to C8. And then that would actually win you a pawn here. So I think that was something that was pretty strong that Wesley so kind of overlooked a little bit. And so, you know, going back to what we had, like I said, we had Rook A to E1, and we see E4 anyway. So Radjabov said, I don't even believe any of that. I'm just pushing the pawn anyway, which, I mean, just kind of literally just gives the pawn away. But it's really, really tricky. It's really, really tricky. And let me see. So we have knight takes E4. We have knight takes E4. And like I said, it's tricky. So what I'm going to actually do right now is I'm going to see if any of you guys want to stop the video and see what Wesley so played. And it is actually kind of a very saving move because there's a very natural move in this position. And it's like I said, I'm curious to see how many people out there would actually catch it. So go ahead and stop the video and see if you can see what you know, what one of the best moves in the position is and what Wesley so actually played. All right, cool. So for those of you that came up with the move C4, you recognize the fact that your queen is kind of like stalemated. And if we just kind of go into the variation, if we were just to go into like a really, really natural capture, you know, with, you know, D takes E4, you know, you're doing good. You're like, hey, I'm attacking the bishop, but the bishop actually can move here. And so you're kind of in a pickle. You're really kind of in a pickle because now this file is open here. And, you know, you're having some issues. I mean, you got to try to move a piece in a way or something like that. You know, the queen doesn't have anywhere to go, but you have this file like heavily defended by these black pieces. So, like I said, if you came up with C4, that's excellent because, you know, I didn't even see that myself at first. And so it took me a minute. I was like, okay, I get it. I get why C4 is actually played. And so going back here, so we got, like I said, we got C4, nice little in-betweeners, which is a good move. And so we have knight to G5. So we got knight takes G5, rook takes E3, a little in-betweener. And we got pawn takes F3, or pawn takes E3, H takes G5. And so we go ahead and snap off the pawn here, or snap off the bishop here with C takes D5, queen takes D5, D4. Just trying to, you know, make sure everything is solid and we don't have any like little knight E5 situations coming. And so we have A5 trying to, you know, since we have this pawn covered with the queen, you know, we're just, you have the ability to push this pawn now. So we got queen to D3, you know, with the super direct threat of queen to H7 checkmate. We got G6, you know, forcing a concession and, you know, creating weaknesses on any type of color complex is not really what you want to do. You know, when you have two bishops on the board and this position is pretty open. So as you guys can see, I mean, it's already starting to look pretty good for white here. All right, so we have bishop to B3, you know, with a nice little tactic here of, you know, trying to see if we can't take this this pawn here because, you know, this pawn is pinned to the king here. So we got knight E5. It's kind of a little tricky move here. I see the idea, you know, it's exploiting the fact that queen is undefended and, you know, this G6 pawn is really kind of weak here. All right, so we have queen to C3. And so we have A takes B4, A takes B4. But if we actually kind of rewind back a touch, instead of queen to C3, which actually kind of allowed some tempos on the queen after this and this, much stronger was queen to C2. And so, you know, now you have a problem here. So you have this knight is on pre and so is the queen. So knight to C4 is kind of the only move here. So we see bishop takes, or we see B takes A5. So rook to A8, we'd see A4 trying to undermine this pawn that's defending the knight there. And so we'd see C6, E4, just using that pawn center, that strong pawn center. So that's why it's so important to have a pawn, you know, have that good pawn center. All right, so queen to D7, we see A takes B5, C takes B5, bishop takes C4, B takes C4, and not the direct queen takes C4, but we see bishop to C3 first. And so as you guys can see, white is up a clear pawn. They have very active pieces. You know, this pass pawn, you know, it's just a horribly lost position for black here. And so, like I said, we had A takes B4, A takes B4, knight to C4, still kind of something similar to what we saw before. And so we got E4 knocking that queen away. So we got queen to D6, bishop takes C4, bishop takes C4, and so we have D5, you know, trying to clear it away so we can just, you know, smack dab a checkmate on H8. So we got that blocked, but you know, that's the only way. So we have queen takes F6, queen takes F6, bishop takes F6, attacking this rook here on the on D8. And so we have rook to B8. Bishop takes G5. Bishop takes B4 with the attack on the rook here on E1. And so we got our own little counter attack going. So we got you know, rook to C1. So we have C3. And so we have bishop to F6, adding, you know, another attacker onto that that C3 pawn. All right, rook to E8, nice little counter attack. So we got bishop takes C3, bishop to C5 check. So we have king to H1. All right, so rook takes E4, bishop takes or bishop to A5. You know, doing a little X-ray, you know, to this this C7 pawn here. All right, so we got bishop to B6. So we got bishop takes B6, pawn takes B6, rook to C6, king to F7. Trying to get that king in the mix here. So we have rook to B6, and as you guys can see, you know, white is up two complete pawns, you know, it's not always a guarantee that you're gonna win a rook endgame being up a pawn, but the chances are very, very good when you're up 2 pawns in a rook endgame. And so we have rook to D4. All right, so we got D6. Trying to see, you know, of course, if we can trade all the pieces off and we just have a 2-to-1 majority here on the king side, this is something that's just a walk in the park to win. And so we have king to H2. So we have king to F5, king to G3. So we got G5, king to F3. Rook to D3 check, king to E2. So you can see this king is, you know, once was on H1 and kind of, you know, just like all alone. And now he's on, you know, E2, a very active square. So we got rook to D4, got king to E3, got rook to D1. All right, so we got D7. You know, we had to try to get the, you know, clear the way for this rook to try to come over and, you know, have some fun over here on the king side. So we got rook takes D7. So we got G4. So we got king to E5, rook to G6, and so we have rook to H7. So rook takes G5 with check. All right, so we have king to F6, rook to F5 with check. So we have king to G6. All right, so we have rook to F3, just defending that pawn over there, and you know, we're pretty much in a position where, you know, this is a completely winning game. All right, so we have king to G5, king to F2. All right, so we have rook to H4, and we have rook to F5. And it is actually in this position that Radjabov actually resigns. So basically what you're looking at here is, you know, the king is stalemated. So the king has put himself into a stalemate position. And there's not really a way to win this position because, you know, you're going to have a situation where, like, of course, the direct, you know, king takes H3 is just going to completely horribly fail to rook to H5 check. You have to trade, and then there's not a way to stop this pawn from queening, right? And so an alternate move, I mean, you're basically, like I said, the king is stalemated. There's not really a way for the king to move because you can't take the pawn here. And so you don't really have any good moves with this rook because, you know, there's mate and 1 on the board if the rook moves away. And so you probably have to do something like this. But, you know, this is the thing for white is, I mean, they can waste a move. You know, maybe they can do like an king F3 or something. You know, the fact that, you know, black is in a stalemated position, it gives white a lot of extra tempo and stuff like that. So that is the second game of the second knockout. You know, let me see, the second knockout games that they played and stuff like that. And so this was one that Wesley so did win. So for a lot of my Filipino people out there, go Wesley, as they say. You know, I appreciate you guys stopping by. Go ahead and subscribe and like, and you know, suggest any other videos. I got probably about 5 hours of, you know, stuff. So I have my own kind of little plans and stuff. But if anybody gets in there and they tell me anything that they want, you know, I'll see if I can do that video for you guys. But I appreciate it, and I'll see y'all next time. All right.